ambassadors, professors, scholars, students, ladies and gentlemen, a very warm welcome to all of you once again to yet another ISA seminar. Our subject today, as you're aware, is something that promises to be very enthralling. It is Afghanistan, zero-sum game between Pakistan and India. Our speaker is a very distinguished personality, General retired, Ambassador retired, Mahmud Ali Durrani. Nestled among an undulating hills in the frontier, faraway frontier province, or the northwest frontiers of Pakistan, in the province which is now called Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, is a small town named after a British officer called Abbottabad, and a British officer called, and you guessed it right, Abbott. It was not a well-known town at all, but over the last few decades, three things happened. General Durrani was born there. I began my career there, and Osama bin Laden chose that as his home. You will appreciate that it is no longer so little known. Now, General Durrani has had a most distinguished career. He was awarded the Sword of Honor as a cadet officer, gentleman cadet, which is a rare distinction in the army. He rose to command, in turn, a battalion, a brigade, a division, and laid out his uniform office as a general officer and went on to serve his country, Pakistan, as ambassador in Washington. He was ambassador in Washington around the same time as I was my country's ambassador, that is Bangladesh's ambassador to the United Nations in New York. So our terms coincided for a while. He left office, his office there to be the national security advisor. As you'll see from the flyer, he left his office for an act of moral courage, which might have cost him his job, but certainly enhanced his reputation. He belongs to a small but rare breed of soldier diplomats, and it's interesting for those of you who are students of diplomacy to understand that Pakistan had offered the world a group of very distinguished soldier diplomats, starting with General Nam Raza, N.M. Raza, General Yusuf, Sahibzada Yaqub Khan, General Gul Hassan, Jahangir Karamat, and now General Durrani, to name some. This fact underscores the close relationship between the two professions, soldiering and diplomacy, both of which call for diligence, dedication, devotion, and discipline. Now about Afghanistan. Many have invaded it in the past, the land, and Afghanistan has proved to be a quagmire which has sucked in many an unwary invader. In the Tate Gallery in London hangs a picture. It's called The Remnants of an Army. And it's by an English painter called Elizabeth, I forget her full name, I think it's Elizabeth Butler. Remnants of an Army depicts the sole British survivor, a man called Bryden, riding his horse, staggering back to in utter exhaustion to Jalalabad from Kabul, the sole British survivor of 1842, the first Anglo-Afghan War. The NATO American withdrawal that we will see in 2014 will not be so bad perhaps, but will not be so much better either. It will be a withdrawal without victory. The original much touted aim of disrupting, dismantling and defeating the Taliban will not have happened. The Afghan tribes, the tribes of Afghanistan, are somewhat weary, tired of this, these invasions in terms of this great game, as it was called, coming with promises of relief and succor. So much so, what actually President Karzai is saying to the world is much like what the Trojan priest Leocan had said of the Greeks. He had said, I fear the Greeks, even though they come bearing gifts. The great game will perhaps go on, but this time, hopefully with the regional players whose stakes are much higher. And the nature of the intervention of the regional players will have to be very different from that of the invaders of the past. Two such regional players could be India and Pakistan. And General Durrani has actually written a book to show that the two countries would profit more from cooperating rather than conflict. Will that be also true of Afghanistan? We shall hear him on this. And the microphone is yours, gentlemen.
Morning, sir, dear person I know, distinguished gentlemen, particularly diplomats and the scholars and the young people. It is indeed a pleasure for me to be here. Retired is almost retarded, so don't expect any miracles here. But as I said, it is indeed a pleasure for me to be here. As is my wont, I will make a very brief presentation because I believe there is a lot of virtue in open discussion, a Q&A, no holds barred. And we have sufficient people here that we can indulge in that with abandon. Therefore, I will keep my remarks very short. Durrani, I'm sure most of you know, but some of you may not. Basically, Durranis are Afghans. Durranis are from the Kandahar region. And I think my forefathers, about 4 generations back, they moved into the subcontinent, in that British India, because they didn't have enough to eat in Afghanistan, no royalty. And believe it or not, my great-grandfather settled in Kashmir, in Syria. Second point I want to make before I go into my presentation, that I had the good fortune of landing in Iraq, Western Afghanistan on 9/11, actual 9/11. So I saw 9/11 through the Afghan prism to a point. So now I think I'll go on to my prepared text. As I told you, it's going to be brief, and then on to what I'm looking forward to is the question-answer session. Ladies and gentlemen, the military threat from India has been the primary preoccupation for the Military Intelligence Directorate at General Headquarters in Rawalpindi, where I stay. Just from across the road from the MI Directorate is the Military Operations Directorate, which on the threat analysis of the MI devises plans to counter the threats which they feel are coming from India. And the nightmare scenario for the Pakistani strategic planners is an unfriendly and hostile Afghanistan while they have to contend with an Indian military threat. Therefore, it has been a higher priority for Pakistan to see a friendly government in Afghanistan. It is possible that at times, to ensure a friendly dispensation in Afghanistan, Pakistan may have overplayed its hand. The presence of almost half a dozen Indian consulates in Afghanistan, strung along the Pak-Afghan border, the active cooperation between the Afghan and Indian intelligence, plus the almost firm belief in Pakistan that India is aiding and abetting insurgency in Balochistan, raises the spectrum of the Indian encirclement of Pakistan. This I am giving you as a backdrop of the common thought in Pakistan. Now, as the National Security Advisor to the Government of Pakistan, I visited India at the invitation of my counterpart in New Delhi in 2007. And he happened to be a colleague of the Track 2 effort with me before he became National Security Advisor and I became National Security Advisor. So we had a relationship. This is Narayanan. A fair segment of my time, the 3 days that I was in India, was devoted to Afghanistan. In a briefing conducted under the NSA's umbrella, I was given an extensive review of the activities of the Indian government in Afghanistan. And this was done by the Indian Military Operations Directorate. And the Indian NSA personally assured me that India was not playing a zero-sum game in Afghanistan. However, the Pakistani intelligence stressed that they had solid proof of India working overtime in Afghanistan to sabotage Pakistan's interests. This is the perspective. My personal assessment is that both the Indian and the Pakistani intelligence agencies miss no opportunity to hit each other even when their respective political leaders are discussing peace. Similarly, our bureaucrats, for most of the time, are also playing the same game on the international canvas. From my time in government, I have a fair idea of how our intelligence and bureaucracy have operated. I do believe intelligence agencies all over the world continue to play their game even with friendly nations and allies. Now a few words about the present security environment in Afghanistan. Dr. Iftihar Chaudhary has already hinted that. I will just add a little to that. According to a Council of Foreign Relations study conducted about a year back, I think it was headed by Armitage, and I quote, "In Afghanistan, the Taliban insurgency is more violent than at any point since 9/11. I agree with the CFR report, and I'm of the view that in spite of the presence of the ISAF forces in Afghanistan for over 10 years, today that unfortunate country is worse off than it was at 9/11. Today the Taliban seem more confident and aggressive. From a broader perspective, let us carry out an assessment of the present situation by reviewing some indicators. And I'll just go over 3-4 of these, 4-5. The first is the Kabul government effective in providing good governance, justice, and security to the common man? Has drug production been brought down significantly, if at all? Has corruption been brought down to an acceptable level? Are there many positive indicators of the revival of the Afghan economy? Is the current US corn strategy succeeding? And finally, which which is more relevant to us today, is that will the Afghan government and its military be prepared to take on the lead role for Afghan security by next year? I leave it to you to answer these in your own mind. As is evident, the present situation is far from satisfactory, and quite frankly, I do not see any hope of improvement in the coming year till 2014. Depending on the pace of withdrawal of ISAF forces and what they leave behind for security, development and governance, the situation is likely to go from bad to worse. Quite frankly, I see instability, serious infighting between various regions, and an ascendancy of the warlords. The Taliban, I believe, will make significant gains, particularly in the Pashtun areas. It is my belief, if Pakistan and India continue to play the usual zero-sum game, which I pointed to earlier, they will add to the turmoil and instability in Afghanistan with hardly any advantage to themselves. I am also of the firm conviction that Afghanistan provides a unique opportunity for a paradigm shift for India and Pakistan to move from confrontation to cooperation. Let us not forget that India and Pakistan officials, though rarely, have cooperated from time to time on important international issues at various forums. Some of our diplomats, I'm sure, watched to them. So, it is global. Geographically, Afghanistan is landlocked, and its best access to the world is through Pakistan and Pakistan alone. I was informed in New Delhi how important it was for Pakistan to allow Indian goods and equipment into Afghanistan and beyond. I will also confess that there exists in Pakistan a strong segment of our decision makers who believe that giving any concessions to India, even if it helps Pakistan, is sacrilege. A senior Indian official reasoned with me that Pakistan boasts of being the economic and trade hub of the region, but it cannot utilize its full potential unless it allows India, the largest trading nation of the region, into the game. I agree with it. I have no doubt that the biggest beneficiary of peace and stability in Afghanistan is Pakistan. However, I believe it is also in the long-term interest of India to see a stable Afghanistan at peace with Pakistan, because access to the resource-rich Central Asia region for India is through Pakistan and Afghanistan. The bottom line is that stability in Afghanistan is in the long-term interest of both the South Asian rivals. I know that today both India and Pakistan have an effective intelligence presence in Afghanistan to create trouble for each other, and unfortunately they continue to do so almost on a daily basis. While Pakistan intelligence has a strong potential to operate through the larger Pashtun population in Afghanistan, the Indians have an equally strong potential of operating against Pakistan through the Afghan government agencies and the old Northern Alliance. Unfortunately, both countries do not seem to realize that their efforts to hurt each other is at the expense of their host, whose stability and well-being is being undermined by them. Ladies and gentlemen, today Afghanistan is at a crossroads where instability and chaos is staring them in the face after the US withdrawal in 2014. I am also of the belief that chaos without doubt will be against the long-term interests of both India and Pakistan. Pakistan is literally joined at the hips with Afghanistan, culturally, but also geographically. Any chaos and instability in Afghanistan will certainly pour into Pakistan, almost as if though through gravity. Indian ambitions to connect the resource-rich Central Asia and exploit the resources of Afghanistan will remain unfulfilled unless there is some stability in Afghanistan. The economic benefits of stability in Afghanistan are immense for both India and Pakistan. With a peaceful Afghanistan, regional trade is bound to grow manifold. While India will be the major beneficiary of trade because of the size of its export potential, Pakistan too will benefit significantly from direct trade and transit fees. However, the most significant economic benefit for India and Pakistan will occur in the realization of TAPI, T-A-P-I, that is the Turkmenistan, Afghanistan, Pakistan, India gas pipelines. Today, Pakistan is literally gasping due to an acute shortage of energy. It will therefore be the primary beneficiary of an early flow of gas from Turkmenistan to Pakistan. Hopefully, TAPI, as is projected, will flow onwards to feed Indian industry. We of the Track 2 community in India and Pakistan call TAPI as the pipeline of peace. While hosting a group of Indian and Pakistani scholars at an Aman Ki Asha seminar in Lahore about a year back, in response to a question by me about stability and peace in Afghanistan, all the participants, both Indians and Pakistani, and nobody was out of it, agreed that it was in the strategic interest of their respective countries to finally see peace in Afghanistan. The important question for me has been that what would be the correct forum to conduct a dialogue which will focus on the role of India and Pakistan towards peace and stability in Afghanistan. In my opinion, a bilateral dialogue has greater chances of success than a multilateral process, where all the participants, that is in a multilateral process, where all the participants tend to pursue their respective agendas. In essence, I propose a frank and honest bilateral dialogue between India and Pakistan on how to cooperate in stabilizing Afghanistan without sacrificing their core interests. Pakistan will need to understand that placing the Indians on the high table in Afghanistan is inevitable and in the best interest of the Afghans and also in the long-term interest of Pakistan. India, on the other hand, will need to recognize Pakistan's pivotal position and role in controlling the insurgency in Afghanistan and its importance as a gateway to Afghanistan and Central Asia. I am proposing a purely bilateral dialogue between these two South Asian rivals. However, the US, China, and other friends of India and Pakistan can softly nudge both these countries to initiate the dialogue. At a later stage of the dialogue, when India and Pakistan have agreed on common strategic objectives in Afghanistan and have come up with an outline of the way forward, they can then widen the bilateral dialogue by inviting Afghanistan. Starting with a trilateral or multilateral dialogue, I believe will be counterproductive. Let me mention here that the proposal of a bilateral dialogue between India and Pakistan is not my original idea. In fact, a senior Indian official offered this proposal to me in February 2006 with the hope that I would transmit it to the decision makers in Pakistan. Transmit I did, but at that time there was no taker in Pakistan to this proposal, particularly putting the Indians on the high table in Afghanistan. However, much later, In the autumn of 2011, when I found some interest in Pakistan to this proposal, India had lost interest in the bilateral dialogue. Such is our situation. I believe Afghanistan does not have to be yet another venue for the usual zero-sum game between us, except for some temporary tactical gains. I repeat that a zero-sum game will definitely be against the long-term interest of both these countries. And without doubt, this will be against the interests of Afghanistan. Post-2014, irrespective of what Pakistan and India may or may not do in Afghanistan, it is likely to descend, Afghanistan is likely to descend into further chaos. However, if India and Pakistan do decide to cooperate in Afghanistan, they will not only be furthering their own national objectives, but also improving Afghanistan's chances for a better future. I recognize that countries like the US have legitimate strategic interests in Afghanistan. The US, for one, will walk away from our region and leave us to resolve our regional issues, which is not altogether bad, while they shift their strategic focus to other regions like where we are, Southeast Asia. I believe this is the first time in the history of the Pakistan-India relationship when we face a serious common threat in the form of religious extremism and growing insurgency. I believe it is time for India and Pakistan to bury the hatchet and learn to cooperate for the good of their people and for the good of the broader region. I thank you for your attention.